We are back on It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati. Lindsay Patterson, Mike Santagata here. Mike, how you feeling?
I'm feeling all right. I mean, we're at the. Does it feel like we're deeper in the off season than we are? I don't know if like people. No, my it's just because like whenever I've been on X, the
Mhm.
the Twitter sphere, it feels like we are very deep in. It feels like April on there, and I don't know if it's like because they normally have to speed. We've had to speed run things the past couple of years, but we can relax.
You're right. We can relax. And that's the thing. I mean, even when Joe Burrow was talking and giving his update in his press conference, everyone was like, oh no, when is he going to be back out there? And they don't really get back to OTAs until the spring. There's still a lot that's going to happen. And for the Cincinnati Bengals, and we'll get to the free agency in just a moment because I do want to talk about Brian Callahan. March is going to be a big month for them because it's franchise tag time and they have to make a decision on Joe Mixon. So for now, I hope fans can just enjoy January. I know it's probably impossible to enjoy the playoffs because the team's not in it and expectations, they didn't meet them. February still needs to happen. Then let's start rolling out these fears of free agents and what's going to happen. But I agree with you. We're only less than a week into the off season, and I can already tell it's going to be a long one.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's what happens when your team misses the playoffs.
True. Yeah. Well, you know what? It can never be as long as an off season as what happened when they got Burrow and Chase, where the season ended by November. They were like anything you watched or listened to it, like mock draft Monday. It's like September, not September, but like November. The team's like 0-7 or something.
Do you remember in 2019? Because I think a lot of Bengals
Are you bringing
fans,
up the guy that was on the roof?
not even
Oh, I
him.
thought I thought we were on the same wavelength because that's who I was thinking of was the guy that stayed on the roof until they won and they started 0-12.
I'm thinking about do you remember what month you decided, okay, season's over, now it is time to get a quarterback? When were you ready for the draft pick?
Um, Not right away. I at least then I was able to willingly talk myself into why something could work,
Mhm.
and then I think they started out 0-4, 0-5, somewhere around there is when I was like, yeah, this team kind of stinks, huh?
Mhm.
I'm trying to see. I'm gonna look up the season real quick and see. I mean, they started 0-11. I was off by one when I
Yeah.
said 0-12. Yeah, I think after they lost to the Cardinals, I lost all hope. That was week 5 when they lost to Cliff Kingsbury's Cardinals, who also stunk.
Well, I used to do a segment with PFF and during football season, and that was when Austin Gill, he worked for them at the time, and we were getting into September. We were talking about Tua because at that point he's like, "Well, Tua might be an option for Cincinnati." And then after Joe Burrow had that Texas game, he said, "I don't know. I think Joe
Week
Burrow."
1,
He's like,
that
"I
was the
think
first week. Yeah,
it was in September, and he goes, I think Joe Burrow is going to be the guy who ends up being the number one pick." And I'm like, all right, then it's Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow's coming to Ohio. So for me, I think it was definitely October where I thought, okay, season's over. Let's talk draft. And then obviously everything happened where it did. And then Joe Burrow gets hurt. And then everybody's looking forward to getting Jamar Chase at that time. Bummed that Joe got hurt in his rookie year. And then you go to an AFC championship and an AFC championship. And here we are. Unfortunately, we're a season that ended earlier, but for the Cincinnati Bengals, still feel like there's a lot of hope. There's still a lot of money that they're going to get to make decisions on in free agency. Some of their own guys to be determined on what that looks like. And we have plenty of time this offseason to talk about franchise tag and free agents. And we're actually going to do that in our next segment. But first, let's talk Brian Callahan. Jake Browning's run. There was a report out in the last week from the NFLPA. Brian Callahan was named a top 4 OC among players, and I think that's absolutely huge. I know how Bengals fans feel about Brian Callahan. I feel like it's maybe 60-40 of a dislike for him. I don't understand it, but hey, I get it. When things aren't going well with the team, it's very easy to point to the play caller, point to the offense. But for me, I'm not really down on Brian Callahan. I think he actually is a big part of this offense, even though Zach Taylor is the majority person who is in charge of calling the plays. But there's still a lot that happens behind the scenes for Brian Callahan, Dan Pitcher, and Zach Taylor. But Brian Callahan, 4 interview requests. Are you surprised?
I actually think I'm not that surprised right now. And if you would have asked me before the Burrow injury, how many, like, do you think he's going to be super hot coaching candidate? I would have thought like, probably similar to last year, like 2 coaching interviews. We'll see how it goes. But instead, he's exploded. And I think the big reason for that is the work he did with Jake Browning. So I'm not overly surprised about how many interviews he had, because he showed he could do it without a really high-end elite quarterback leading his offense.
Do you think this is going to be the year that Brian Callahan gets his head coaching job?
I don't know. That is it's likely. I don't think it's like greater than 75% chance he's got. Like, we could just start assuming, like, if you're the Lions, you're assuming Ben Johnson's gone. If you're the Ravens, you're assuming Mike McDonald's gone.
Hopefully.
Like, there's a few guys that, like, you look and you're like, this is our last run with him. I don't think I would say that about Brian. It could happen.
Mm-hmm.
He was heavily considered for that Colts job last year, if I'm remembering right. Yeah, Steichen got it. Wasn't as heavily considered as Lou was for that Cardinals job, although it's just, I don't think Lou has gotten an interview yet. And that's what happens when you lose some talent and the defense falls apart. It's just, I said it last year. It's kind of sad, off topic, but I was just sad. I was like, that might have been Lou's best shot. Like, that sucks. And he didn't get the job. But look, ignoring that, talking about Brian, not that surprised. Young, offensive-minded head coaching candidate. Only thing going against him, he doesn't call plays, but it's a high-end offense. He showed he could do it with a high-end quarterback and with a backup quarterback. It's, I would say, it's all interviews, and we don't know how he does in those.
We don't. And I want to say that he has more, and not that it really matters in the long run. And I know how it kind of works with teams in playoffs, and they can't do the interviews until the playoffs are over. And obviously Brian Callahan can get a head start on all of that. But I want to say he has more requests this year than last year.
Yeah, he had 2 last year.
Yeah. So
he's already at 4.
And there's a lot of openings right now.
More than expected. Although my take on the Seattle one is I think they're bringing Dan Quinn in.
Do you really?
I think that's a successor. That's where he started. That's where he became a big name. And with Pete, hopefully amicably. I feel bad for Pete a little bit, because it sounded like he kind of wanted to continue, but the organization was like, no. So then he still wants to be a part of the organization, though, so they're moving him upstairs. Kind of like what the Bengals fans talked about doing with Marvin for years.
That would have never worked out. I don't think so.
No, but yeah, I think he might take that Seattle job. And obviously, an opening is in New England, but Bill Belichick's also, if he's looking for a head coaching job, he'll get one of those too. So there's a few that are like, yeah, there's openings, but like, there are some definite coaching prospects ahead of him. Like I mentioned with Johnson and McDonald, like they'll both get jobs before he does, or at least they're pretty much guaranteed jobs. And he probably is not.
I hope it's not something that we saw with Lou and Anarumo, where they took it all the way to March because they had to wait for the Super Bowl to be over. And they were just stringing it along, and we didn't know, like, is Lou going to get the job, or, are they going to go Eagles coordinator? I don't know. It just was such a long process, and I feel bad for Lou and Aruma, because I agree with you. It kind of felt like the last opportunity. Who knows? Maybe next year, or maybe this is it, and maybe he stays with Cincinnati for the next few years. But for Brian Callahan, this is my ask. I have 2. If Brian Callahan gets a head coaching job somewhere, please, please, please take your dad with you. Get him out of Cleveland.
I don't know how that contract would work, unless he's going to bring his dad as the offensive coordinator. But I don't think he'd do that.
I don't think he would either. But man,
if his dad was available, I think he would 100% bring him as the offensive line coach. But I don't think he's going to bring him as the offensive coordinator. Somebody did ask me. I don't think this was a question, although I don't think we're doing questions. Yeah. did I think that he would bring Pitcher with him and make him the offensive coordinator? And my reaction was not really, unless he
Yeah.
gets like the Chargers job and he's willing to make Pitcher the play caller. Pitcher probably should stay because you're not going to be going to a comparable offense, at least, talent wise.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree with you. I think the Cincinnati Bengals, I know there are some Bengals fans, and they're probably still out there. And look, you can feel however you want. I'm not going to talk down to your decision or who they want as an offensive coordinator, but a lot of them are like, Joe Brady, Joe Brady. There's two things here. I do not think the Buffalo Bills, if they like how everything's going, even though I don't feel like they should have fired their offensive coordinator the first time, they're going to keep Joe Brady as their offensive coordinator. Number two,
Yeah.
your offensive coordinator's in town. Your offensive
Yeah.
coordinator. There's a reason. Yeah, go ahead.
No, that was just like what I talked about today was just like the two things on are like, I think Ryan is a good OC. You've mentioned the voted by the players. I think that's mostly how well are they liked within the organization, and very well liked would be the answer to that. But also high end offenses, we don't really know exactly what he does, and I feel like a lot of the complaints come from play calling and less play design and scheme. Although I have seen some scheme and play design complaints, and I don't know how warranted those are sometimes because they're like something that like I see, I go like that doesn't make any sense to me, and I watch this team 300 times every week. So people just want to air frustrations. But yeah, my point was like, if Brian leaves, the people that are like celebrating this because everybody hates their coaches for whatever reason, because players can't be wrong. It's only coaches. It's going to be the same thing. That's the whole point of having Zach Taylor be your head coach and play caller is it's always going to be the same offense. You're not going to change scheme. You're not going to change systems. You're going to promote Dan Pitcher, and they might even just promote a guy to be the quarterback coach too. So it's very in-house, and the Bengals have always, in my lifetime, been like an in-house type of organization.
And I think with Dan Pitcher, there's a lot of credit there. I know, obviously being familiar with Joe Burrow, it would be huge. As an offensive coordinator, I still feel like there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes when it comes to how they prep for the play calling before the game. I think Joe Burrow has a lot to say. I think Brian Callahan, I think Dan Pitcher. You wouldn't hear your franchise quarterback talk the way he does about all the offensive minds, the way Joe Burrow does, if he did not truly believe that. And I do feel like with Dan Pitcher, they respect him a lot because last year, the Tampa Bay Bucks, they interviewed him a couple times, and there was an opportunity to go there to be the offensive coordinator. I know the Cincinnati Bengals gave him a raise and an extension. And I think there was probably some internal communication. And look, this is a total guess. There's no insider information on this, that they probably told him, hey, there's a chance that we promote you to OC. There's an opportunity in the future, could be next season if Brian gets a job, or there's just a chance that we make that decision to move you in a higher role. But they did want to bring it back for a reason. And Dan Pitcher decided to come back to Cincinnati, which was absolutely huge for their offensive staff. You look at guys like their wide receiver coach and Troy. He's done a lot with this wide receiver group. I know it's very easy to say that, oh, you have Jamar Chase. Oh, you had T. Higgins. You had Tyler Boyd. Look what he's been able to do with Yoshi out there as a wide receiver in the 6th round. I think he's an absolutely huge piece to have on your offensive staff because he also had an interview last year for an offensive coordinator.
And Troy Walters, I think between him and Pitcher, he's more likely to leave. And that's less about his offensive coordinator prospects. I think Pitcher has plenty of prospects. I think Pitcher is kind of just like waiting in the wings until maybe he gets tired if Brian keeps not getting the job.
Like, okay, well now it's kind of getting late. But
or at least like head coaching is done and there's still some OCs available. He's like, well, I'm not an OC here. I'm just gonna go. But yeah, Walters is like, well, I'm not next in line. Like if I want to be the offensive coordinator of this team, I'm third in this pecking order. Like it's Brian, then it's Pitcher, and then it would be me. Hopefully, I don't even know if maybe whoever the other quarterback coach, because that is the pipeline to just be a quarterback's coach. But yeah, and if I was a team, I'd be very interested in Troy Walters. I have no idea on the play calling aspect of anything, or if he could do that, but there's plenty of jobs where he wouldn't have to. And he's developed a lot of wide receivers to being high-end talents. And especially like when I watched Jamar Chase when he was coming out, there was like technical things that needed work. And then like his rookie year, he was already so much better at that. And it's happened with T. Higgins over the course of the past few years. He's gotten better and better and better. And look at Yosivas, of course, another one. Everybody labeled as raw, all this other stuff. And he looks better. And throughout the year, keeps looking better and better. So, yeah, if you're looking, and wide receivers are huge. So if you're looking for a guy that he kind of seems like we're early. And he may be getting a new guy to work with, a new test. But so far, I mean, the track record on his ability to develop these wide receivers is really nice.
Yeah, I remember, and we'll move on after this, but I remember one thing about Troy Walters is Zach Taylor had talked about it. I want to say it was in the Kansas City Chiefs game after the game was over, and Zach got criticized a little bit about it. But when T left the game, then he noticed that T was back in there, and Zach was like, oh, T's back in there. And he said, Troy handles a lot of that when he feels, and he was dealing with the hamstring, but T wanted to battle. And Troy makes those decisions a lot when it comes to the players out there at that time during some of the play calling. And I think people were surprised that Zach Taylor didn't know that T ended up getting back on the field. But I think he has a lot of faith in his coaching staff and knowing what to do during certain times. And, that's credit to what they've been able to do when it comes to Dan Pitcher, when it comes to Brian Callahan, when it comes to Troy Walters. It's just been, they've been lucky to have that. Obviously I know people want to see more results and you want to get back in the playoffs and you want to win a championship, but still feel like he's getting interviews for a reason. And, credit to Brian. Hopefully I always root for people to get opportunities, and hopefully this is the time that Brian Callahan gets it. We'll see, but there's a lot of interest right now from a lot of franchises. Anything else to say about that?
Not much else to say about it. It's just I think like a new voice would make sense, but not as the offensive coordinator. I think it would, in theory, there's a way it makes sense, like get a new voice in there and kind of challenge the way things are going. But in my mind, it's also like there's other spots. You could think of other teams. What Vic Fangio did with the Eagles last year, where he was like a consultant. If they bring in Arthur Smith or Frank Reich or any older offensive used to be head coach or at least offensive coordinator, just bring him as a consultant and just let's bounce a few ideas off this. That could work. Yeah. That would be how I see the Bengals bringing in some type of new voice.
Yeah, to be determined. We'll see what that looks like, but I'm sure we'll find out in the next month the future for Brian Callahan and maybe anybody else from the staff. Zach Taylor did tell the media on Monday his staff is planning on coming back unless they get a promotion somewhere else, and that would be including Brian Callahan getting a head coaching job. We'll move on next on It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati to talk a little free agent return in 2024. We are back on It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati. Free agents, as you mentioned, the offseason is here a little sooner than some would like, but there's a lot of talk. Running back, wide receiver, what's it going to look like? Are these players coming back? We voiced pretty much a similar opinion when it comes to T. Higgins and the franchise, which we'll know about in about a couple months if they decide to do the franchise tag. I did see a story with T. Higgins on the Bleacher Report, and it just when I got on here, so I can't think of the author's name, but I have it on my Twitter account. And he told the reporter yesterday when he was doing the interview with Jamar Chase that, of course, Cincinnati's the top option. And it's really nice to hear that, they want him back. We'll see what happens, obviously, in the future. If that happens. For me, it feels like the franchise tag. Do you feel like the franchise tag is the best decision?
I would have extended him last year, but for this season, I think I'd still prefer an extension. But that's not happening, and we don't know why or what the asking price is. So next, yes, that is the next best decision in my mind.
Next free agent, DJ Reader. If I were to tell you,
I would have extended him. Yeah.
We can even put T. Higgins off the table because I feel like we've talked about his future plenty. I feel like it's going to be a franchise tag. We'll find out soon. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to DJ Reader, Jonah Williams, Tyler Boyd, I can put you in there, but it really does feel like it's the end. And Chido. Tell me the number one person on out of those options that are coming back. Chido, Jonah.
Likelihood or
yeah, likelihood.
Okay. Well, I think the same. I think it's Reader. I don't think it happens. So that tells you what I think about all four of those guys. They're probably all gone. But if the Bengals front office takes a long look at this roster and who's currently on contract, there is a ginormous, and obviously the 330-pound hole, but just in general hole at the interior. They have one guy that I think they should feel good about playing heavy snaps. Outside of that, like, I don't know. And they play three guys in their base, like three interior defensive linemen in their base defense. And I know that they were disappointed in what they were getting because they switched from doing that to having two guys and playing a 4-3 towards the very end of the year just because they didn't want to put those guys out there as much. Nobody stepped up in Reader's absence, in my mind, at the interior defensive line.
Mm-hmm.
Tufele, Carter, Tupo, none of them. I would give Reader what he wants. I think 3-4 year deal, and there's probably fake years towards the end of those deals where you can get out of it if he gets more injured or looks his age or whatever. But as of right now, he's 29-year-old free agent, or going to be 29. I think next year is his 29 season. And I wouldn't expect a drop off. Even at 30, I don't think nose tackles typically drop off around then. When I did my slight bit of back of the napkin research last year, it seemed like 32 was the age you kind of want to look towards the future.
Yeah,
but
I could see.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm talking my own opinion into it. I think that they know that this is an issue, but they may decide to take what the $15 million per year that Reader should get and put it two guys, like a nose tackle that costs $6 or $7 million a year, and then also add in another 3 tech that costs $6 million a year. And then maybe you're even entering the draft going like, okay, we might, if that Newton guy falls to us, we might take him, or if Sweat falls to us, we might take him in round 2 or whatever.
Yeah, I do not know what they're going to do with DJ Reader. It would be really easier if he wasn't injured right now. But at the same time, with him being injured and coming off an injury, I could still see where they do a 2-year. I just don't know the number. I don't know the number because I don't know what that looks like. And it still
if it's less than like 13 or 14, I think he walks and gets a better deal.
Even if he wouldn't be ready for the start of regular season?
Yeah, I think he'll still get a better deal than that. Than like 2 years, 13 million, like 226. I think he gets a better deal than that.
Yeah, because if you're DJ Reader, you probably want to do the 2-year deal versus, say, the Cincinnati Bengals tell you, let's sign you a 1-year deal.
Oh, no, there's no, if I'm Reader, no shot I'm taking a 1-year deal. Imagine you get hurt again.
You'd be in the same situation. But if
it's happened to Ogunjobi, isn't it?
Yeah, it did. And I still miss Larry O. I still feel like that was the decision that, when it didn't work out for him the first time, they should have called. They should have called him and told him, come home to Cincinnati. I think that would have been absolutely amazing. But for DJ Reader, I really don't know. I think out of all of the free agents, T. Higgins is the only one that I could see coming back. Jonah Williams, probably a month ago, I think I had talked myself into maybe he is the franchise tag, or maybe they do talk to Jonah. But now he's out.
Never saw him.
You never saw him as a franchise tag?
No. It's I am a Jonah supporter. I am a big Jonah supporter. I've been one of the bigger ones in the Bengals sphere, at least from what I can tell. Most guys don't like him. They wanted Jackson Carman taking his job last year and to trade him away. And I think he's a solid starting tackle. I think T. Higgins is almost a blue chip talent at wide receiver. And the difference there is 2 tiers. I'm using the franchise tag to keep the guy. Okay, this is the easiest way to do this in my head.
Yep.
You get it. You start of last year. You get an offer for Jonah Williams. You get an offer for T. Higgins. Which one's higher?
T. Higgins.
Yeah. So that's what you use the franchise tag on.
No, I agree. But at that moment, I still thought, when I was thinking of franchise tag for Jonah, probably when I was like, oh, he's playing legit, but maybe they can get him back on a franchise tag. I was still thinking of an extension for T. Higgins.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't thinking that it was going to be Jonah Williams or T. Higgins. I was still thinking.
Well, some people have done that. That's what, and I thought that was insane.
No, I don't. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't see them extending T. Higgins. Just being completely honest. I wish
Talked
it
about
could
it.
I wish it could happen. I really do. At the same time, I think it's going to be the let's run it back for one more year and see what they can do with the franchise tag, and we're going to be talking about that for quite some time, but soon we'll have an answer because they're going to have to make it official. Even if he doesn't sign it right away, that's still going to be something that the Cincinnati Bengals will have to bring up. So yeah, Jonah Williams, I think this is it. I don't think they're going to, maybe they offer him a 2-year, just see, but I think he can get something else on the open market, and he's probably going to decide to go elsewhere.
Yeah, starting tackle is hard to come by, so I assume he has a market. I guess the way he comes back is his market kind of stinks, and
Yeah.
he's just like, screw it, whatever. 1 year, 8 million, something like that. I'll show him again that I can do this, and then go test my market or something like that. And I think the Bengals probably are willing to do something because it does fill a hole with the guy they know. But like I said earlier, I think Reeder's the most likely to come back. I don't think any of these guys are likely to come back. That would be
Yeah.
the big takeaway here.
But I do want to add again. I know I had just said that I don't think Higgins gets extended. I hope he does. I want to say that anybody's listening. I'm just saying it really just feels like the future with the Cincinnati Bengals. Maybe it's 2 franchise tags. Maybe he gets franchise tagged this year.
I've seen the idea that you tag him, run it back this year, and then you tag him next year specifically just to trade him.
And that's fine. I hope Higgins has the best year of his life for the Cincinnati Bengals in 2024. Bengals can control it. They can get assets in 2025, and they can go send him elsewhere to the NFC.
He's going to the AFC if it's open, I think.
I know.
That's where the contenders with bad wide receivers are.
I know. Well, the Carolina Panthers could really use him.
Contender.
You're right. I do not want to. I love T. Higgins so much that I would never want him to be on the Carolina Panthers ever.
At least get him somewhere decent. Come on.
I wouldn't wish that on anyone. Yeah, kind of moving on from T. Higgins, Jonah Williams, DJ Reader. Obviously it would be great if they brought him back. Chido. I feel like they've made their decision. DJ Turner, we've talked about it plenty in this podcast. Cam Taylor, Britt, but Chido, I root for Chido to be fully bounced back from the ACL. I really do. I hope maybe next year is that year. I just don't see the Cincinnati Bengals paying cornerback money. I wouldn't even be surprised at 18 if they took a cornerback, but they do have other needs. I feel like they're kind of far away from not far away, but not as close as they were last year to take VPA. I think there are needs that they're going to be able to address at 18. But I think Chido's going to go play elsewhere.
Yeah, me too. Like with a lot of these guys, if the market sucks, maybe he comes back. But I mean, that one's almost the least likely to me because, I mean, I'm not trying to predict the market. I saw PFF Brad say he thinks he's getting 2 years, 20 something. That's way out of the Bengals price range on this. Mm-hmm. For the Bengals, you're looking at what they would give like an Eli Apple, like 1 year, 4 million, maybe less. That's the market they'd be looking at for a corner, I think so, because they're looking at a guy that's depth. They're not looking at a guy like a veteran depth piece. They're not really looking for a starting level guy or a guy that might push to start. And when you look around the league, you see deals like for Chido types that are much bigger than what the Bengals are probably willing to offer. But yeah, like with everybody, I mean, like everybody on this list is, if their market stinks, they might just come back. Even Tyler Boyd. But like, the other part of this is I don't think these markets are going to stink. Like that's the other big part of it. Like I think all these guys are going to be able to find somewhere that is willing to pay them. And you only need one team. You don't need to have, like, I think Reader will have suitors, but say you listener hate Jonah Williams. He needs one team that is desperate for an offensive tackle, and that team will 100% give him more money than the Bengals are willing to do.
I already told you. You look at the Kansas City Chiefs tackles and what they paid them. There's a market for Jonah Williams to go out there and make.
Donovan Smith had to wait. He was a June signing. It was a real late one.
It was late.
Right after OTA. It was after the first day of OTAs because I still think it's half a joke. It might be half serious. I think they saw Juwan Taylor attempt to play left tackle and went, that's a right tackle. Hold on.
You're right. We talked about that because I remember them thinking they upgraded. They have their tackle. Like it's going to work out. And then they saw some of the OTAs and realized, nope, that's not going to work out.
It's the first day.
That's
the second day before the second day of OTA started.
Definitely. And he's not a free agent. I do want to get to the wild card predictions in our next segment, but he's not a free agent. But I had mentioned the Cincinnati Bengals do have to make a lot of decisions in March. Joe Mixon will be one of them because that bonus hits the first week of March, and it's no.
Do you think? Yeah, the bonus hits
in March, and it won't be one of those long summer things where we're wondering, is Joe Mixon back? What are they going to do? Because it is an $8 million cap hit.
They have to figure that out by June 1st.
Yeah. So his bonus comes on. It's like a $3 million bonus that comes the first week of March.
For some reason in my brain, I was only thinking of post June 1st type of thing, which never mind. But it's an important day for me. But March that hits. So what do you think? Do you think he is the most likely outside of T to be on the team next year? Or do you think he's with like the DJ Reader, the Jonah Williams type, where they might just cut him loose, let him test the mark, and see if he wants to come back?
I'm just gonna say this. I'm thanking everyone that we do not
likelihood. I'm not talking about your opinion, just likelihood. What do you think the Bengals work does?
The likelihood, I think they still bring him back.
Me too.
I do. I truly do. And I had nothing against it. Joe Mixon had one of his most productive years. I do think they do need to add another running back.
Oh yeah, I think this is likely to be a 3-person committee next year.
Yeah. And I think that's great. Keep Joe Mixon. Chase Brown had his rookie year of getting some reps in there. Still haven't seen him really that much with Joe Burrow. And you add another running back. And I'd be cool with that.
If the people listening can remember when Joe Mixon was drafted, they still had Jeremy Hill and Gio Bernard, and they didn't cut one of those guys and make it a 2-person thing. They made it. It was a weird 3-person committee. That's kind of what I see is going to happen here. Like I think Mixon is kind of being phased out, but they're not going to cut him. They're going to keep him around. They like him, but not 100% sure. I think they're going to draft another running back.
I do too. I do
because
too.
They're probably they're definitely letting Evans walk. I think that's happening.
I don't even know where Chris Evans is.
Filming. He's filming Secret Wars. But
the transfer portal for sure.
He's in the transfer portal, yeah. Travion Williams too. I was like, he's gone.
Yeah, it's probably time. But yeah, no, I think Joe Mixon, I think he'll be back. But the good news is, like I said, I do not think it's going to be this long thing over the summer where we're wondering if Joe Mixon is back with the Cincinnati Bengals, and that's totally fine. Bring him back. Next, we're going to get to a little wild card round. It'll be a little different. We do predictions normally on Thursdays, but now we get to do it without the Cincinnati Bengals in the playoffs. That's a bummer. But next on It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati. We are back on It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati. It is super wild card weekend. Feeling a little different, kind of ready for the playoffs to get here and in. But you know what? I will still watch every single minute of the postseason starting on Saturday. Least surprising game in the world is the Texans are at 4:00 on a Saturday. Every time the Cincinnati Bengals would play them, it was always the first Saturday game that was matched up. And here we are again. I actually think it's going to be one of the better games of Super Wildcard Weekend. But Joe Flacco versus CJ Stroud, what is going to happen?
Okay. This is tough in my brain because this is so much of a Texans offense versus Browns defense question. That's how I see it.
And it's different.
I don't see this as like a real what if Joe Flacco just goes out? Like I don't think the reason the Browns win would be that they won a shootout against the Texans. Like if the Texans offense does really well, I think they win. If the Browns defense does well, I think they win. And what is huge in this, and what would have been even bigger last year, but because they changed defensive coordinators, now Myles Garrett moves around. But Myles Garrett versus Laremy Tunsil, that is maybe your best defensive player. You might win the award. Going up against what I think is top 3 pass protector at offensive tackle. Like that's a good on good matchup. That should be fun. I also think they're going to give a lot of help. And I also think they're going to move Garrett around a lot. But it's still going to happen once in a while. I will also say, making this prediction, I think the Browns win. And I felt good enough that when I put together like a little mini parlay for the teams I feel good about, they were one of them.
Yeah. I'm going to make this quick so we can get through all of them. I'm going to say it pains me because I do not want them to win. And I know Joe Flacco's the quarterback right now, but I still don't like that organization. The Cincinnati Bengals, the Cleveland Browns, sorry guys, are going to win the game. I'll say 20-17. I don't know. Myles Garrett, he's the MVP on their team. And I feel like he shows up in every moment and he'll be able to do that. But I really kind of wanted CJ Stroud and the Texans to go on a 2021 Cincinnati Bengals vibe. And maybe kind of upset a lot of people, found their way to win the division. And they've been kind of fun this season. Obviously, good to see CJ Stroud back out there. But yeah, that's where I'm feeling about that Browns-Texans game. We both have the Browns winning. Let's go to the night game. The Chiefs and the Dolphins. It's going to be freezing if you haven't heard yet. Going to be very cold for this game. And the Chiefs, they haven't looked like the Chiefs yet. I keep saying every week they're going to start to look like the Chiefs, but they really don't have much of an offense. But it is Patrick Mahomes. The Dolphins, they've really been kind of a bummer the second half of the season, to be completely honest with you. If you would have told me, I don't know, early on in the season, they weren't going to win the AFC East with the way they were playing, I would have said that's a little surprising, even though I did take the Bills to win the AFC East. I think the Dolphins lose. I'll say 23-13.
We're on the same wavelength. And I think Chiefs win. This has been, I would love to be proven wrong. The Dolphins have beaten, I think, less teams above 500 than the Patriots. I think I saw that. The Patriots are picking number 3. They've or maybe the same amount, but they've won one game against a top, like a team over 500. That was the Cowboys. I don't think the Chiefs are like the Cowboys that much.
No.
I think they're going to be harder to run against, which is how the Dolphins were able to move the ball a little bit against the Cowboys team. And the Chiefs against the Dolphins already won this game once, and that was not at home. That was in Germany. So I think in Arrowhead, this is a Chiefs win, and then this is another one I felt confident enough that this was part of the. You'll find out all 4 legs of this parlay.
I'm thinking about doing that. I might do it tomorrow just so I can. This is what happens when you're trying to watch the games. You have to do fun parlays. So it'll be fun. The next
it's game, emotional hedging a lot too. You can see that. Like I'm picking the Browns and the Chiefs to win. It's like I don't love those teams
because you want to be wrong. I love it. I love it. You know what? I'll keep rolling that way too. Here's how I feel. This is my hot take, Bengals fans. I keep hearing, what's that AFC team? Since your team's out, you hope ends up winning it all. And I say, I hope the Ravens, the Bills, the Chiefs, and I hope the Browns all lose. The Steelers do not bother me because I don't think that they're going to make it all the way. I know somebody in the AFC has to win if I take all of those teams out, but the Steelers are going to get kicked badly. It's going to be. It's going to be bad. It's going to be bad.
No
TJ Watt. No TJ Watt.
I agree. It doesn't make sense. But have you watched the Steelers? None of this makes sense.
No, they don't make sense.
They just kind of keep games close enough until it's at the end of the game. And then you see like Boswell's coming out for the game winner. Like they're up 3 or maybe they're down 3 and they lose the game. But it feels like they're able to play to their opponent for the most part. Even with Mason Rudolph, even if TJ Watt's out, it feels like they'll just be able to just keep this within a score the entire time.
That's true. They never really win games with TJ Watt.
I picked the Bills to win, and it's part of my parlay. But I don't think I would bet the Bills minus whatever it is, like 14.
Oh, no. It's a lot. That's actually terrible. I'd be terrified of
And it's a huge snow game. It's gonna be like negative out, tons of snow and wind. I could see the crazy way this happens, and it is not a fun game to watch.
Everyone keeps saying, Mike Tomlin, he has a winning record. And I said, when's the last time he won a playoff game? And I do not think it's going to be this weekend. I think, maybe it's sloppy. Maybe the Bills don't play their best game because they're coming off this pretty, I would say, emotional win. You take the AFC East after being down 6-6 on the season. People thought you weren't going to make the playoffs. You win the division and you're the number 2 seed. Bills win this game 25. That was weird. 24-13. Somehow
I think the under is in play for this one. Although without TJ Watt, I don't know. That is the one part that slows me down. But in my brain, I'm just, hearing that there might be 60-mile-per-hour winds. It's like, take the under. I feel like that's not terrible advice.
We'll move on to the 4:00 game. 4:30 game, actually. Packers at Cowboys. This game, you know what? We're going to have some fun here. I like the way Dak has played this season. Cowboys have done enough, but I just do not believe in the Dallas Cowboys. I don't. Not that I believe in the Packers being world beaters or anything like that. I'm going to take this upset. I'm going Packers in this game. 20-17.
I'm not. I feel
Okay.
confident. I put the Cowboys as one of my teams too. I guess I only didn't really pick like a couple games, but yeah, I think the Packers defense is not good enough for this game. That's my biggest issue. I think they've been pretty bad all year, and the offense is fun. You know, Jordan Love can be fun, and even when they have Aaron Jones, it's not like the run game's terrible. And they've got a slew of young wide receivers with different names, but the same production anytime one of them goes down. It is like the clone army in Star Wars. You know, like one's down, here comes another nameless, like faceless clone. Like Dontavian Wicks is out there still scoring touchdowns. Okay. But yeah, Jordan Love's been really good. It's been a good story. I can see how this happens. In my mind, the Cowboys will be able to win this game because the Packers defense isn't going to give them any issues.
All right. I guess it's time to move to the evening Sunday game. Only two more and we'll get through these quick. I know how a lot of people feel. I even said the Rams could upset a lot of people and find themselves maybe in the NFC Championship game, maybe right back where it all started. Or the last time they went to the Super Bowl, represented the NFC. I know it's going to be an emotional game. Matthew Stafford returning to face his former team in the playoffs. For Lions fans, it has been 30 plus years. I want you to have this moment. I do not know if you're going to have this moment, but I do have to pick a winner. So I will pick it for the Detroit Lions fans. It's finally over. Enjoy it. Party hard for week 1 of Wildcard Weekend. You're going to win 28-21.
I think Stafford wins his return. I want the Lions to win, but I think the Rams pull it. I don't know. I put this one in there too. This is the only underdog I took, but I was like, an underdog's got to win.
I do. You can't pick all the you
can't just pick all the favorites, and this is the underdog I feel the best about. But I also think it's the most common, probably, that people feel the best about. Sean McVay, the experience that the Rams have. The Lions are a young team with no playoff experience. At least I can't think of a guy on their roster with playoff experience. David Montgomery, was he part of the double doink? Maybe, but
you're right.
That,
I should probably talk myself
out of it.
Was,
but yeah, I can't think of like Marvin Jones is on that Lions team. He's given the playoff experience, maybe.
Is he back on the Lions team? I know he's taken some time.
No, wait, he took time away. You're right. He was there week 1. That's why I remembered. Well, Josh Reynolds, C.J. Gardner-Johnson. There's a good one. Good call, Spencer.
Yeah.
There's not much, but yeah, see the point I'm making. Not much playoff experience here. And the Rams are the opposite. Well, not their defense. Their defense is Aaron Donald and a bunch of low-paid, late-round rookies who are playing really well. But that's kind of what it is. Ernest Jones, he was also in that Super Bowl, and he's still on the team. But the offense feels like a grizzled group, and the guy like Kupp and Stafford and Higbee and some of the offensive line, not all of it. And then you even look at the guys that aren't that experienced. It's like Puka Nacua, and it's like guys I think will play well. Tutu Atwell stepped up. You've got some Demarcus Robinson out of nowhere, and he is a Super Bowl champion. People forget. So I feel like this Rams team is just grizzled. They've got Sean McVay, so I feel like they've got the coaching advantage, and they've got the experience. And I think this is a pretty equal matchup team to team. Now we'll just see. Maybe the Lions just bring it in terms of the fans and the energy, and they're at home. They've got the home field advantage. They're young, upstart. I just think that the grizzled team might take this one down. Yeah, which is sad because the Lions are probably the team I'm rooting for the most in the playoffs.
I agree. I hope they take it all. And the funny thing is, I said the Lions are going to win this game. I did a hit on the radio, and I said the Rams are going to go to the Super Bowl. So I'm just giving predictions, so I cannot be wrong. We'll go ahead and go to the last game. What I love about Super Wildcard Weekend is we get Monday night playoffs. Eagles at Bucks. This one, I'm a little indecisive because of the way the Eagles have been playing lately, but I still feel like they find a way to kind of get back into rhythm when it comes to postseason. I know a lot of favorites in the NFC. I actually picked the Dallas Cowboys to win the division, and that did happen before the season. The Eagles didn't win, but I think they'll go on a run still in the NFC side until they get to the NFC Championship. Eagles are going to beat the Bucks 35-28.
This is a game I didn't bet because I just don't feel good. I don't feel good about either. I don't think the Bucks are a good team. I don't think the Bucks are a good team, but the Eagles have been playing so bad lately. I mean, they deserved that loss to the Cardinals a couple weeks ago. They lost to the Giants by a big score last week. I don't. It just looks so disgusting right now. And now Hurts is dealing with another injury. Brown's dealing with an injury. I think I'm talking myself into Bucks.
It would be so funny if Baker Mayfield made it further than the Cleveland Browns on the AFC side. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, it would be funny. But, man, this Eagles team, the defense fell apart. The offense isn't what it was. I think if they tried, they could probably just run the ball and win this game. But they haven't, for whatever reason, they're choosing not to run the ball all the time, even if it's sufficient. They're deciding instead to try to throw the ball. Maybe these are RPO situations, but yeah, it's kind of gross to watch the Eagles right now. So I still think the Eagles have a very good shot at winning this game, and I think they are the better team on paper, and they're the team that went to the Super Bowl. If we're going to do all that talk like I just did with the Rams, but they just seem like they are in free fall. Getting blown out by the Giants is...
Yeah, they're playing. It's disappointing if you're the Eagles right now.
And they were trying to win that game. I know that eventually Mariota came in and everything, but to start that, they had all the starters out there. They were trying to win the game, and they started getting blown out, and they pulled them. It was like, oh my goodness.
You know what's funny about the Eagles is you never really heard, is it a Super Bowl hangover like you did other teams when they were coming off the Super Bowl? It's a really different language. But the Eagles, they're not playing very good football right now. We'll see what happens. I do pick them to win. I think that they'll win. I don't know if it's going to look pretty, and I don't think they're going to last too far. I don't see them going back to the Super Bowl. They did start 10-1 though. Spencer,
what did they finish?
Let's talk about the Miami Dolphins. How did they start, and how did
I didn't pick them to win either?
No. But I'm just saying, like the Miami Dolphins, the way they started the season.
Oh yeah, 10-1. Okay, never mind. 10-1 was Spencer's comment about. Okay, in my brain, I thought he was like giving kind of like, yeah, they did start 10-1. They're a pretty good team. No, that was 10-1. That's why they didn't get the hangover talk. That makes sense. Bengals start slow. That's why they get that stupid
That's true.
talk.
That's true. That makes sense. But
11-6. 1-5 down the stretch.
That's embarrassing. You were talking about a number 1 seed, and then they end up going and don't even win their own division.
Well, it would be very embarrassing if the Jags didn't do it worse.
Ooh, that's what he just said. Producer Spencer, I know you guys can't see it, but he did say the Jags. That is very disappointing. The AFC South, I thought, it's going to be a really fun division going forward, and then the Jags don't even make it. The Cincinnati Bengals broke the Jags. We can definitely take that away from the season. But this is it. We went 47 minutes on a podcast when the season is in off-season mode. You are going to have your Dax Hill, and I apologize if it's already up because I've not checked your link yet. Okay.
Monday.
Coming out on Monday. Make sure you check it out, Bengals fans. It'll be a really great piece to read on Dax Hill over on All Bengals. Make sure you follow Mike Bengals_Sands and follow me at LNDS Patterson. Listen to all of our expert advice when it comes to the playoffs. And I don't know if that'll help you if you're betting on it, but we'll see what happens. Thank you as always for listening too. It's always game day in Cincinnati.